Hi, this is Tracy Lewis from Stuff and Things. I'm going to work backwards today on a project that I've had in my head for some time. It came about because I have the Butterfly Beauty set, I believe that's what it's called, Butterfly Beauty Thinlits. And I've used them, the smaller butterflies, here and there, but I haven't used the largest butterflies as a set. I've cut off different butterflies here and there. And my vision that I haven't really seen a lot on Pinterest is utilizing as many of the different pieces in the set as possible, which includes this die and this die. So I envisioned having a lot of layers and utilizing these. Now there isn't a flower, so I will show you. The Happy Spring is from Fable Friends. The Beautiful Bouquet dies have perfect, very small floral clusters that I used. This one and this one. So now that I've shown you the different pieces, I also used the splatter from Touches of Texture. So let's take this apart. I like to make things, just as a rule, in like a collage or in clusters. So this particular piece was built up separate from the background, which I'll show in a minute. And I did the third layer. I will show you how I did all 3 layers. I can look through Pinterest and I didn't see 3-layer butterflies, and I didn't see, like I said, these 2. I think I saw 1 or 2 that used this one, the leafy swirl, but not both. So that was kind of a challenge I set forth. I'm a very slow crafter. I don't really feel like I need to craft in a hurry, so this took me like all day. And I would be doing other things and work on the gluing. So how I glue, I have a second one here, and I was going to show you my technique. This started out as like a mock-up, a test, but it ends up being very nice, so it may or may not be put in some sort of challenge, or it wasn't really done with any colors in mind, specific to any color challenges or anything. So I'm going to show you really quickly how I glue. You can use the full sheet adhesives, but I've never used it. I have always glued these types of very dainty pieces using mono glue. So I use very small dots, and I use it very sparingly. It's a very sticky adhesive, and so you don't have to use a lot, and you can let it dry. It dries sticky, so you can work on a large piece like this and not feel like you have to be in a hurry, because if it dries, it's still going to have a lot of sticking power. For the antennas, I just try to put a little tiny dot on the round antennas. This particular color scheme is for a color challenge, so it will definitely be entered into probably a blog hop that has these colors. These colors are really common right now, I've noticed, because it is spring. So I'm just running very, very lightly. You can probably hardly see any glue being applied. These are a very thin line die. I actually really like intricate dies, and find these to be very much on the dainty side. I haven't had any problems die cutting them. I run it through a couple of times, maybe 2 to 4, depending on how I feel. This one is more delicate and dainty and has more cutouts than the back one does. The back one I only run through once. And the back one is this. And once or twice running it through seems to work fine with my particular die cutter. I have decided that all die cutters are different. They have a different history, made a different day of the week. And so whether or not I always use shims, that's another secret. I used, for both of these, I used 2 shims of 80-pound sheets of paper. I very seldom replace them. The edges are kind of wrinkled for when I put them in and they're not centered. And I have them labeled with an S so I don't accidentally get them mixed up with some other purpose and get very disappointed when I notice my paper is all wrinkly and doesn't look very good. So I'm looking through here and see it's pretty sticky. The glue is drying. Lots of sticky. I try to get like in here, in between these. I don't want them to raise up and look separated, so I've tried to get a little bit of glue in there. Now, there's some glue. This is just a Teflon sheet, a baking Teflon sheet, and all of this glue can just get wiped off, so I'm just going to flip it over. I start in the middle. Working on the big butterfly. So focusing on him first, then I can take, see it's really sticky, take the edges of the smaller butterflies and line them up, but it was really easy. So that's as it is, and now I'll just let it sit and dry. My fingers are a little sticky. So then phase 2, how did I get these darker green? This is Lemon Lime Twist and Granny Apple Green. So I am now going to cut the Melon Mambo out, and each of these big pieces are going to be adhered on the back of each section of butterfly. So how I do it is I die cut and I leave the pieces in and I pop them out one butterfly at a time so I don't get confused. When we have a multiple hearts project and all of those hearts are different sizes, that's in the Be Mine Thinlits. So I've also done flowers. There are some intricate flowers that I wanted to inset the flowers. You have to do one flower at a time. So that's just my tip for doing intricate 3-level dies. And the Happy Spring is done with the layering squares. I wanted it as small as possible so it wouldn't, it needed it to fit so that this butterfly showed, and what I was using was too big, so I went with this simple square, did not give it a border. I initially thought it would have a blueberry bushel border, and then I liked applying the vine, and I'll probably tack the vine down so it stays in place for mailing. Now let's talk about the background. The background has 3 different procedures done on it. When I did the layered leaves embossing folder, I used soft seafoam. Before I did the dry embossing, I used the giant splatter stamp 3 times using garden green, and I just did 3 different applications, diagonal. Then I actually, you probably can't see from your angle, but I wetted this a couple of times, sprayed it, and tapped it off, so actually there's a little bit of water treatment. It's not obvious. I just wanted it to have a little less sharp edged look. And then I also used garden green sponging around the perimeter. I cut it down to 3 3/4 by 4 3/4 because I wanted it to, the butterfly edges and the vines to overlap. So here you can see the butterfly on the edges and the vines all overlap. In fact, these 2 vines are probably in trouble. I'll probably tack this one in just far enough that it won't hit the edge, and then this one I'll also tack down. I'll curl it a little bit when I actually apply it to the layer. But I love the depth. I don't know if you can see very well how much depth I've got going on with all of the layers, but I really wanted it to look very fluffy and 3D-like. And this is the kind of die project that I love, and I'm enjoying that Stampin' Up! Has gotten more and more intricate with their dies, and I think that this is a really fun set, and it's actually the most beautiful butterfly dies I think I've ever seen. I've seen some really nice butterfly dies, but this, I believe, is the prettiest. And even with all of the very small butterflies, you can combine them in any different way, and they're all very, very, very well done. Love it. So, I hope you enjoyed seeing the piecing together of this with a couple of tips on how to glue if you just want to do it the old-fashioned way with the mono glue, and how to get lots of layers and using the butterflies and making a 3-step butterfly versus the 2. And thanks for watching. Hey, I am back, and that is because I decided to pursue finishing the color challenge card for the Kre8tors blog hop this month. So this was my mock-up, my first attempt. And the one thing that I wish is that behind this butterfly, the main butterfly, was more depth, like it went darker. So I'm trying something pretty aggressive. I've never tried it before, and I'm putting the second card together. And you guys watched me do the first 2 layers, and I will show you now what the finished focal layer looks like, which is many layers with the Mango Melody as the 3rd layer, and then of course I did the Highland Heather, which is one of the colors. So there were 5 possible colors, and I used 4 of the 5. I skipped the gray granite because I'm not a gray person, and I really feel that this particular design is all full of the brights. Alright, so again, my focus is trying to get behind the main butterfly to have some dark depth. I did use the same seafoam, but I have sponged after, and then instead of a diagonal set of dots, I dotted using Wonderful Romance's smaller dots behind each of the outer butterflies, because there's a total of 5, and then in the center I did use the big splat like I had before, but then I sponged the very center of it. The next difference was Timeless Textures has some edge texture stamps, and I used soft seafoam all the way around the edges before I did the layered leaves embossing. And then I also then went around the outer edges with the garden green, which is the same color as the dots. Okay, so I've prepped this. I then took a Highland Heather and I sponged the edges to give it a little more depth, having to stick with our prescribed colors. Okay, so that's down. Now let's see if I have success at my goal of getting some depth behind the main butterfly. What I'm doing now is just trying to make sure that the happy spring is straight. All right. I believe that I have achieved my goal of having the behind the center of the butterfly being the dark garden green sponging. And then you can see just some dots around that perimeter and right here in the middle. And now I'm going to put both of these, so these are both complete, my mock-up on the left, which looks just as good as the finished one using the prescribed colors on the right. These will both also be for my Easter/spring pen pal card sending that I'm getting ready to do. and they're both going to be put on a white base. And now I'm really done. Thanks for watching.